Hey everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. Glad you guys can make it. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing all right. Guys, I'm going to wait till some more people pop in. Sometimes that takes a while. But anyway, guys, I'm going to jump right into the topic, okay? Has manufacturing increased domestically? And I'm referring specifically to the tariffs, right? The whole point of the tariffs, to my understanding, is to, reduce the dependency of the U.S. on foreigners, okay, foreign countries, China specifically, when it comes to goods and services. Now, I'll tell you right now, as much as I don't agree with a lot of ideologies that surround that administration, I do happen to agree with this one, because at one point the U.S. was the top dog, so to speak, when it came to manufacturing, and it was the hub of the world. China wasn't even anywhere close to where it was, and the U.S., as far as an economic power, was it. And of course, you can trace that back to 400 years of free labor that was supplied to them by those you call African Americans. But that's a whole nother story, right? But let's touch on that for a minute. If you extracted 400 years of free labor out of a people, right, that you did not even consider human beings, wouldn't that be the reason why you held at such a high position in terms of being number one in the world? I mean, that's pure economic. How should I put that? Pure economic pilfering, I should say. I don't know, just some word. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that there's a reason why the United States was the number one economic power. We can't ignore that. A lot of people with cognitive dissonance, they tend to want to ignore the unsavory aspects of United States history. Hey, E. Brooklyn, how you doing? Glad you could pop in. Thanks for keeping me company tonight. A lot of people, because of their cognitive dissonance, they want to ignore the unsavory aspect of U.S. history, which propelled it to be the economic juggernaut that it is, or at least was, in the recent past. But anyway, like I said, that's a whole other story. So when it comes to U.S. manufacturing on this channel, I always, I shouted from the rooftops, I think that's a good idea. Why did I think that's a good idea? Because of, it brings jobs to the population of the United States, right? Because back in the day when these big corporate giants, they saw that, hey, look, we can make our stuff overseas. And they pretty much cast out into the wild the American population, the middle-class population, right? By outsourcing all of their workforce overseas, leaving the United States to become more of a consumer nation, which means that the United States became more of a debt-ridden nation, and that's why you have people suffering today, right? Because of certain, those at the top of the ladder being greedy and saying, look, I don't care about the employer, I care about the bottom line. And that's what happened. E. Brooklyn, nothing wrong with made in America. Great jobs here. Yeah. Create jobs here. Absolutely. I'm all for that. But, so when the tariffs happened, this was supposed to be, a way, I think in Trump's mind, to release the United States from the grip of dependency on foreign nations for their goods and services, and bring jobs back home. Okay, I talk about it all the time, but where are we now? Have the tariffs? I'm not going to say they work right away, because certain things take time to work. Okay, they take time to work, and that's what's happening now. But in the interim, it's going to be a lot of things getting shooken up, and a lot of people are losing their shirts, losing their jobs. For instance, I was a trucker for almost 20 years. Okay. 10 of those years, I used to go in and out of the ports. of Southern California. Good portion of the earlier part, I was, all 48 states and all that good stuff. And so I'm quite familiar with how the ports work and operate. I know when there's slow times, and I know when there's, it's full of work. Well, when the tariffs happened in the last, I'd say April or so, April, May, no, I would say April, before they really hit. You had one of the most the volume coming through those ports in a long time. Okay, I'm going to reference an article in a minute. But why did that happen? Because retailers and manufacturers saw the tariffs coming, so they just automatically they just shoved as many containers as they could into these ports. Hey, Reno, how you doing? Blessed to you as well, man. Good to see you. That's my Bahamian brother right there, Reno Stubbs. Shout out. Yeah, so retailers and manufacturers just shoved as many goods and services as they could, into the U.S. or whatever other countries. But we're talking specifically about the U.S., right? They saw an increase in volume that was, record breaking, right? But they only did that because they knew the tariffs were coming, like I said. Then about a month later, when the tariffs actually hit, they saw like a 30% drop in volume, which meant truckers, like I used to be, warehouse workers, and anybody related to the transportation and shipping industry. And not just that, even people with regular jobs, retailers that had to let go of their staff, right? Lay people off, had to cut back because of the tariffs, right? And you ask yourself, man, was it good for the sake of manufacturing in America again, right? Was the tariffs or the way the administration went about it, was it the right way to do it? Alienating foreign nations, putting your foot down, so to speak. And the ultimate question was, well, what was the outcome of all of that? Did manufacturing increase in the U.S.? And I'll just talk about a little bit about that. Was it really worth it? But first, let's reference some articles, like I said, to kind of back up what I'm saying. All right, so back in April, it's like the ports, okay, we're so happy. It says this ranks as our third best April on record, surpassed only by the pandemic, said Port of LA Executive Director Gene Soroka. But what he sees ahead doesn't look good. Much of the traffic in April were retailers and manufacturers bringing in cargo before high tariffs kicked in. Just, pretty much said that already. For the month of May, 80 or so sailings, they're talking about ships coming in, were expected to arrive in Los Angeles, but 17 of those have been canceled and 10 cancellations remain on the books for the month of June. Okay. Now, I know people that work in the ports, longshoremen. I know a few of them, okay? And let me tell you, that's one of the best jobs to have without a college degree. A longshoremen make good money, okay? I'm talking about $200,000, $300,000 a year without a college degree, just working your way up. But it takes a while to get in there. It's like a system. It's like its own ecosystem, And so, yeah, what happened was I was talking to some of them and they say, yeah, man, it's, we don't have as much work as we used to. So instead of going in at 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, they may be going in two or 3 days a week, right? It depends. This is how the tariffs affected them, right? So it says tens of thousands of longshore workers operate the cranes that unload containers from ships, drive the trucks that move the containers, and do other port-related work. From the number of labor gangs that are out there responding to the shift requirements of cargo to the truckers and the warehouse workers, the impact was felt almost immediately during that first week of May. All right, it says he estimated there were hundreds fewer people working on the docks the Friday of the first week of May because of the cargo slowdown. Yeah. So yeah, guys, that's what happened. I know how it feels to be out there on those ports. It's like being when there's no work. It's like a wasteland when nothing's moving, no containers moving, no trucks moving, no ship. All the ships are docked. All the ships are parked out in the ocean because they can't get in because whatever's going on. They may, a lot of that sometimes have to do with uh, the internal disturbances like strikes and stuff that they may have with, employees striking against contractors and stuff like that, companies. But that's another thing. So coffee, juice concentrate, avocados, bananas have all been hit by tariffs, and we'll see that price increase at the grocery store as well, as I'm sure we've all seen. Okay. So like I said, once again, guys, were the tariffs worth it? Were they worth it? Were they worth it? Well, let's see. Let's see where the state of U.S. manufacturing is at the moment. Companies are planning to build factories in America. Are Trump's tariffs working? Says since tariffs were announced, a number of companies have announced multi-billion-dollar investments in U.S. manufacturing, helping to achieve President Donald Trump's goal of restoring U.S. industry. It may be too early to tell if the announcements contribute to a manufacturing renaissance. One analysis by Goldman Sachs found that the economic damage from the tariffs would outweigh the benefits, costing 5 jobs for every 1 they create. Now, if you have a company or whatever like Goldman Sachs that does in-depth analysis of these things, in-depth economic analysis, and the financial impacts of these kinds of decisions, these political decisions, that's something you may want to take a look at. I mean, they base their profits and revenues off of these kinds of decisions. It says big manufacturing investments are coming to the U.S. as tariffs threaten supply chains and production. Trump has said restoring U.S. manufacturing is one of his primary goals. And I happen to agree with that. I don't, I'm not a Trump person, but sometimes you can be against somebody and still have aligning goals and things like that, right? I'm not, so anyway, in the recent months, several companies have announced they are building new facilities, okay, or expanding production in the U.S. as Trump's trade policies have imposed new barriers to imports. So it sounds okay now. Okay, everybody's coming back home, right? Coming back home to give you those jobs. It says last month, Swiss drug maker, got to be a drug company, right? Roche said it was putting $50 billion into expanding its U.S. footprint, though it did not explicitly cite tariffs as the reason. However, Trump has said he is planning to impose a tariff of 25% on all pharmaceutical imports to encourage companies to relocate factories in the U.S. Okay, so that's the pharmaceutical companies. What other companies are trying to relocate or at least plant themselves in the U.S.? A lot of these companies are not even U.S. companies. Honda, for instance, which is moving its production of its Civic hybrid hatchback to the U.S. Hyundai. By the way, guys, you seen those Hyundai models today? I remember when Hyundai was a car that you wouldn't even be caught dead in. Back, you might be too young, some of you guys, but when I was coming up, the Hyundai was a car that you wouldn't be caught dead in. Now they got, man, that shows you that if you don't give up and you stick to your plan and evolve over time. I mean, look at Hyundai now. Those cars, some of those cars look really, really good. So it says Hyundai, which is said it would build a new factory in Georgia. Hyundai, okay. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSM, a Taiwanese manufacturer of computer chips, said it was investing $100 million. It's funny. The tariffs are mostly against China because I think China accounts for about 60% of all U.S. imports. And then you have all other countries, right? So the same people that you're leveling these tariffs against, they just said, oh, well, we just go take some of these billions of dollars and put our companies on your soil, so we won't have to worry about your tariffs. So I guess that's one of the ways they kind of got back at it or fought it. Said this this computer chip company is investing 100 billion with a B to build 5 factories in the U.S. Chip giant Nvidia, which said it was spending 500 billion through partnerships to build supercomputers in U.S. plants. IBM, which plans to invest 150 billion in the U.S. over the next 5 years. Apple, which said it would spend 500 billion in the country over the next 4 years. What's this? Shemek 4 Solutions, a Saudi healthcare company, said it would spend 5.8 billion on a factory in Michigan to make medical intravenous fluids. Okay, so these are some pretty big companies, okay, that are talking about relocating. On top of that, multiple companies said they were considering expanding U.S. production in light of Trump's tariffs. It's too early to tell if those announcements add up to a manufacturing renaissance spurred by the tariffs. Of course, it's. What do you mean it's too early to tell? That's the reason they're doing it. Otherwise, why would they, why would they do it? Why would all those companies at one time do it now? It's because of the tariffs. There's no need to talk around it. I mean, what other reason would they have? And if they had other reasons before the tariffs definitely kicked them in the butt to do it now. Many manufacturers were already looking to expand U.S. production in an effort to simplify supply lines and avoid a repeat of the logistical headaches of 2020. You're talking about COVID-19, what happened there. In March, and before the bulk of tariffs were announced, U.S. companies spent more money on building factories at a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 234 billion. That's triple the 79 billion in February. So, okay, so they're pouring way more money into it. Could you imagine having all this capital just to pour into it's like they had that money sitting in an emergency fund. Imagine if you had just 5 million sitting in an emergency fund. These companies have billions of money, billions of dollars, I should say, sitting, waiting, just to be deployed. And, talk about asset management. Okay, where are we here? Let me go back. Here we go. God bless you all. E. Brooklyn says, my father and grandfather were longshoremen. Oh, is that right? The good thing about longshoreman work is that when you're, you can if you're done, you can hand your card. They have something called a card. You can hand that to your child, I think, or you may be a relative or next of kin. Let's just say you die, or you're, I don't know all the specifics of it, but I know if you die, your child can inherit that job from you. You can give them your longshoreman card, and that's why there's a lot of nepotism in on the ports in the longshoreman world, right? The docks. And one of the pet peeves I had with the ports is I didn't really see a lot of diversity in certain aspects of the port. Yeah, it's diverse. They have different cultures down there, but in certain jobs like being a mechanic, working on the chassis and the trucks and everything, you just saw one group of people mostly, and I wasn't too pleased about that. But hey, look, I didn't make it. I didn't build this system. It is what it is. I just report on it. I just tell you what I see in my observations. But yeah, that's one good thing about it is you have somebody in that world, you can inherit that job. And like I said, if they pay pretty damn good, and the benefits alone of being a longshoreman is like one of the best packages that you could ever have, but you will work, before you get to a certain point. But after a certain point, you're not really working that hard, at least in terms of time. You maybe 4 hours or something working on a crane or something like that. But yeah, back to the discussion, guys. Yeah. So you have these companies thinking about it, right? Returning to the U.S. And of course, that'll be good because it'll bring more jobs. But to me, it's really not enough, right? Like most of these companies, you got tech companies, you got Apple, right? You got this other healthcare company, IBM, and then you have the NVIDIA. Those are all tech companies, right? Unless you have some kind of tech training, right? Um, well, I should say this: it'll be good because when they're building these factories, right, they're going to need tradesmen, which circles back to what I talk about all the time on this channel. So it could, it definitely help in the skilled trade shortage. Okay, but these are mostly tech, other than some automotive coming back, and we'll see how that goes, right? But I didn't hear anything about U.S. automotive companies being, benefiting at all from this, especially if they're the ones importing parts. So even if you're a domestic factory, you come over here and you establish a domestic factory, you still may have, or you're already a domestic manufacturer here, you still may have to import parts, right? You still have to import supply, so you will still be subject to tariffs, right? Because a lot of these factories, they don't make everything, right? They still have to import some of the parts for their products or whatever they're making, right? So, but I think it's a step in the right direction. Um, you know, any major change is going to be, there's going to be shakeups before the dust settles and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see how the dust settles after this. And I know that there was like a 90-day hiatus on the between the U.S. and China on the tariffs, but that's temporary, right? We'll see what happens after that. And with Trump and how he thinks, man, he could just he could just switch up any moment, right? So anyway, guys, just an interesting observation as to what's happening in terms of the tariffs and how they're affecting everybody and prices and grocery prices and all of that. So yeah, let me see here. Reno, what did Reno say? Are these foreign companies taking advantage of President Trump's $5 million offer to operate in the U.S., or are they just coming over because of the tariffs? I'm not aware of the $5 million offer there, Reno, but I would say that tariffs are the main driver, okay, to circumvent any further hit to their bottom line or their economies over there. I would say that tariffs are the main driver. And I'm sure that, if you put some money, excuse my language, if you put some money on the table, like 5 million, I mean, to these companies, that's probably like $5, but I'm sure some of them will take it. Maybe some of the smaller manufacturers. That would help. I know if I was a smaller company, I would take it. Yeah, good question though. Will they be bringing the line staff, or will they be obligated to hire a certain percentage of Americans? I would assume because of the whole other cost of relocating a whole staff, maybe they'll probably bring their key people over to train the people over here in the U.S., right? That's I would think it would be, but they would let go of everybody else, maybe give them a severance pay or something like that. But yeah, I don't, if they have a really big staff, like Apple, for instance, I don't think they're going to be bringing their whole Chinese staff back over to the U.S. Some may come, but others will probably just, stay and do, whatever, So, but yeah, very good questions there, Reno, on how that works. Yeah. Well, anyway, guys, that's it. I figured I'd just dive a little bit into that because, like I said, I always, talk about manufacturing coming back here. President Trump is extremely focused on Americans. Yeah, he's focused on certain Americans. I'd put it like that. Some of his other policies are telling you that he's not focused on everybody, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, he's definitely focused on his concept of America and what it should be. Right? He's in power, and he has a right to focus on whatever he wants to focus on, whether we like it or not. But I would say underneath all of that, he does want this country. He does want this country to be more independent, right? I guess he ran the numbers, or his people ran the numbers, and saw how, in his eyes, the U.S. was getting taken advantage of by these other countries, and that had to change. That has to change. So he did that across the board. He did it with immigration. He's doing it with the imports, exports, tariffs. By the way, as far as when it comes to exports, the U.S. exporting, right? I think the numbers were like 3.5% of was the number of exports that we did recently, and that's not good either. So that has to catch up. You know what I mean? Because exports are part of the larger revenue for the country. So let's see, where am I there? Yeah, interesting topic, guys. Just just a little dive into that, and touch on that. Appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Okay, thanks Reno for coming in, and thanks Eat Brooklyn. I appreciate you. Check out the vids on the channel, support the channel. Appreciate you guys thus far, man. Got over 30K subscribers right now. Let's continue growing. Let's get to that 100K, guys. Let's get to the 100K. Help us get there, Okay? Represent. All right, guys. Have a good one. Appreciate you. Take care.